Welcome back, I'm Sage and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney, and this is the Stocks in Action show. We'll glimpse through developments across the equity and commodity markets and look at the stocks under the spotlight today. Let us first start with ASX 200's performance. Well, the Australian share market opened lower as the country battles an outbreak of the highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus, and while strong oil and copper prices helped miners and energy stocks gain in the early trades. The S&P ASX 200 has gained 30.20 points, or 0.41%, to 7,338.80, and that was at around 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Sydney Airport is up 31.84% and Chalice Mining is up 9.42%. And 8 of 11 sectors are higher, along with the S&P ASX 200 index. Industrials is the best performing sector, while telecommunications services is trading lowest. And on that note, let us quickly glance through some global developments and its effect on the global market movements. On Friday, the global equity markets traded higher, hitting a record high amid a better than expected US monthly jobs data for June 2021, signalling a strong end to the second quarter of the US economy. However, there were a few weak spots in the jobs report, including a slight increase in the US unemployment rate. And the US jobs data revealed that the US jobs growth picked up pace in June 2021 as non-farm payrolls increased by 850,000 jobs after rising by 583,000 in May 2021, surpassing the estimated increase of 700,000 jobs by economists polled by Reuters. US employment is still higher than its pre-pandemic level. It is approximately 6.8 million jobs below its peak in February 2020 and prior to the coronavirus causing havoc in the US and around the world. However, the unemployment rate has seen a slight uptick of 0.1% to 5.9% from 5.8% in May 2021. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones rose 0.44%, while the S&P 500 gained 0.75%. The Nasdaq Composite was up 0.81%. And while prospects of a sharp economic recovery supported equity markets, the market participants remained nervous that this economic rebound could boost inflation to an uncomfortable level for the US Fed. And former US Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers has said massively scaled up US fiscal spending will likely set off inflationary pressures not seen in a generation. However, some argue that until wage pressures return in force, a return to 1970s style inflation is highly unlikely. And on Thursday, the US dollar hit a 3-month high, but traded mainly within a tight range as market participants didn't make heavy bets before Friday's US non-farm payrolls report. And the US Treasury yields traded lower on Friday as a strong payroll report left uncertainty about how the US Federal Reserve might act. And the benchmark 10-year yield was down 3.9 basis points during midday's trading. On Friday, the US dollar retreated from its 3-month high, weighed down by the US non-farm payrolls report for June 2021, which depicted a strong key number, but with some weak components. Bitcoin on Sunday was up 2.44% and Dogecoin was up by 1.02% and Ether was up 5.57%. And now it's time for a short break, but please stay tuned as I'll be back with more trending updates on the commodity markets after this.
This is Andy Liu broadcasting from Kalkine Media Studio in Australia, and I'll be hosting the new Kalkine Wellness Show. The half-hour show will cover topics from how wellness as a concept has become even more significant during COVID, to how becoming vegan may improve your health, and much more. We are excited to showcase our live streaming show to our audience of millions overseas and in Australia. Tune in to Kalkine TV and join me.
Welcome back, viewers. This is Sage, your host, live from the Kalkine studios in Sydney, and you are watching the Stocks in Action show. Moving to the commodities, on Friday, gold traded higher, climbing further from a 2-month low hit earlier in the week as investigators weighed prospects for the US Fed tightening its monetary policy after a strong US jobs report. And despite it showing a slight uptick in the unemployment rate, the weakness in the US dollar also triggered demand for the yellow metal, and the spot gold ticked up 0.4%. The US gold futures were up 0.4% as well. On Thursday, the global commodities market also witnessed benchmark Dalian iron ore marked its second consecutive weekly fall last week, though it inched up in a volatile session on Friday as China steps up efforts to curb supplies to meet its carbon emissions goals. And the most actively traded September month delivery of iron ore futures on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange was 0.8% higher after falling as much as 2.6% just a day before. On Friday, copper prices traded higher as market participants regarded the recent downturn in the industrial metal as a buying opportunity, supported by the upbeat US jobs data. And 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange surged 0.6% on Friday after falling by about 9% in June 2021. And lastly, on the global development, crude oil prices traded nearly flat on Monday as the OPEC Plus resumed talks on raising the oil output. And however, the prices were partially offset due to the decision made by the United Arab Emirates to block the deal. September delivery crude oil futures traded 0.08% down, whereas August delivery WTI crude oil futures traded 0.17% down as of 5th July 2021. The Organisation of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and Allies, known as OPEC Plus, decided to meet again after the UAE opposed the proposal, stating that it wants to increase its production quota. And the group was expected to increase the supply by 0.4 million barrels per day, a month from August to December 2021. OPEC's demand forecast doesn't include the potential Iranian supply and spread of a new coronavirus variant, and the rising cases of Delta variant of coronavirus is a matter of concern that can weigh oil prices in the future. And on that note, let's have a look now at a few recent updates from the ASX-listed companies. Starting with the first big news, trading in the red, consumer services firm Tabcorp Holdings said that it plans to undertake a demerger of its lotteries and Keno business. The company has taken the decision to go for a demerger after a detailed strategic review of all important structural and ownership options to increase value for shareholders, as declared by the firm on 29th March 2021. The demerger will be creating two separate market-guiding ASX-listed firms with different trading portfolios, policies and growth prospects. Tabcorp expects that both the companies will carry a strong balance sheet that will aid their respective growths and is aiming achievement of the demerger by the end of June 2021. And now it's time for a short break, but please stay tuned. I'll be back with more trending updates on the Australian market.
Tune in to get the latest information.
Whether it's about market movements or the currency graph,
Sectoral coverage or industry news.
we cover it all on our news segments.
Be on top of the latest news
With Kalkine TV.
Welcome back. Sage here, your host, live from the Kalkine studios, and you're watching the Stocks in Action show. Let us now take a look at the next big news. Trading in the green, Nutritional Growth Solutions has signed an agreement for Schneider Children's Medical Centre to clinically test the effectiveness of healthy height on the height and weight of children treated with stimulant medications for attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome. And Nutritional Growth Solutions is a worldwide nutrition-focused firm that makes scientifically formulated and clinically proven supplements to aid development in children. Studies have reported that children treated with stimulants for ADHD may suffer an attenuation in height gain, both in the short and long term, which is why an intervention to increase height gain is needed. And the next big news covers Res App Health, a digital health company developing smartphone applications for the diagnosis and management of respiratory disease. Trading flat, ResApp has signed a commercial agreement with Australian-based telehealth company Doctors On Demand. And Doctors On Demand will launch ResApp's smartphone-based acute respiratory diagnostic test, ResApp DX, in their video telehealth services in the third quarter of this calendar year. And launched in 2015, Doctors On Demand offers both direct-to-consumer and business-to-business offerings for patients with a wide array of telehealth services, including general practitioners, psychiatrists and dietitians, along with a direct connection to 3,623 pharmacies for prescription fulfilment. And moving on to the next. Buy now, pay later space. Trading in the green, Amero International has announced that it will be constructing the most advanced titanium alloy gas atomisation powder manufacturing facility to be installed and commissioned in Victoria. Amero is a specialist in the metal additive manufacturing, which is also known as 3D printing for the defence, aerospace and tooling sectors. Amero will be constructing a titanium alloy powder facility that will enable the production of aerospace grade titanium to the highest standards at approximately half the cost of the nearest competitor. And Amero's proprietary manufacturing process is likely to position the company as a global leader in high quality titanium alloy powder production and supply. And the last news to be discussed is the session in the Sydney Airport Holdings Pty Ltd, which jumped 38.4% after a consortium makes a $22.26 billion Australian dollar takeover offer. The $8.25 Australian dollar per share offer is a 42% premium to Friday's close and is below Sydney Airport's pre-pandemic share price levels. Shares scaled their highest levels since 24th February 2020 and delivered their sharpest intraday percentage gains. The consortium comprises of IFM Investors, Pension Fund, Q Super and Global Infrastructure Management. And Sydney Airport's volumes are nearly 2.5 times their 30-day average. Sydney Airport is Australia's only listed airport operator, with the remainder owned by consortiums of infrastructure investors. And thanks so much for joining us on that report. That is all for now, and stay tuned with Kalkine TV for more live market updates, and we will be back with more news on the markets, the economy and diverse themes and sectors. Sage signing off.